Welcome back to another episode of Rackside Chat. I am Ruban Kanapathippillai from ASA Computers and Racklive. Today we are diving into the real world impact of AI in the enterprises, especially how to deploy AI that is efficient, private, and purposeful. We'll also explore how our solution AI Accurate was purpose built to solve these exact problems. Today, joining me is Brian Sathianathan from Iterate.ai, our partner in code developing AI Curate, as well as Brian has extensive knowledge of building AI solution in the industry, as well as he's in the Forbes Advisory Council. Welcome, Brian.
Hi, Ruben, and excited to be here. And thanks for having me in the podcast. I'm sure it's going to be very exciting for our listeners today.
No, I think it definitely, because whenever we both of us go and meet some customers or have discussion, and we go into so many different areas, I get excited to learn from you, and our audience is going to have a lot of learning today. And so, can you, before we start into this particular topic, can you give us some little bit background and intro about yourself and Iterate?
Absolutely, Ruben. Yeah, I'm Brian Sathianathan. I'm the co-founder and chief digital officer and CTO of Iterate.ai. So Iterate.ai is the AI platform company that provides a base drag and drop platform as well as a runtime for large enterprises to build AI applications and agents much, much faster. We also have some end customer or like power user application called Generate, which we provide to enterprise users as well. Before the generative AI revolution we've been in the AI industry for quite a long time, and we've deployed AI at scale, computer vision applications, and we serve over like 40 million monthly uniques use applications built on top of our platform. And we have over 4,000 edge instances. We are one of those unique companies in AI that can run AI privately on the edge as well as on the cloud at data centers or CSPs and so on. Because we have such a wide array of deployments, we also have 4,000 edge instances across 15 countries in the world that serve in AI. And my quick background, I spent my early career, like the first 8 years at Apple when Steve came back. I was a part of their NPI, new product introduction / emerging technologies team. Part of the first iTunes launch, the iPhone launch, the first Apple's security signing certificates, and so on. Original background was in algorithms, so I did a lot of cryptography security work for Apple. Then I left Apple to do video because when I was working on the iPhone, I saw the potential of how video is transforming. And even on a small edge device, video is being played amazingly well. And I'm like, this is going to be the next big thing. And I ended up starting a video streaming transcoding company that did it for mobile devices very early. It was not just iPhone, but also like Razer and all these little handhelds. So that took off. And then we sold that in 2010, that company. And then I did some investments in companies and also did investments for Turner Broadcasting. Was sitting in a boards, and then that's when I ended up meeting John Nordmark, who is also an amazing entrepreneur, who's just just like you, Ruben. He's got great background, and so we sat down and got together, and we said, hey, you know what? There is a big black box in this space that we got to make all these new technologies be integratable in the AI world, and that's how we ended up building this Interplay platform. Originally started as an integration platform, but eventually evolved into a really fast building platform as well as a runtime platform that could run things much faster, not only in the cloud, but across the entire modality of, all the way from small devices to big cloud devices.
No, I think the reason when ASA was looking for a partner, even prior to that, I got to know you last more than 5 to 10 years ago, and looking at it, how you and John has done this company is a unique, educational case study for many startup. You guys went and listened to the executives, listened to the engineers at small, medium, large enterprises, and understood where the pain points are, what are the workflow they are trying to optimize. Nowadays, they all talk about AI workflows, optimization, and all that. You guys were doing that 8 to 10 years ago using machine learning and AI, and you identified the real problem. You guys, another admirable thing is you guys bootstrapped the company at the beginning. You didn't go and raise money and try to get this, but you boot by getting customers signed up for you. That is the starting, isn't it?
Yeah, no, absolutely, Ruben. I think when we first started the company, our goal was to, because we both have done companies in the past and we've gone through traditional venture capital and all those races. So we decided we're going to spend as much time with not with the investors, even though we do respect and spend time with them, but with actually with customers, right? How do we? So in the early days, we spent a lot of time working with retail and other industry customers, looking at, now of course it's kind of interesting because with OpenAI trying to do model training and Palantir being in that industry, like this whole concept of forward deployed engineers is like every VC is now talking about forward deployed engineering, forward deployed model engineers, right? We've been doing that for the last couple of years with customers. We even today have like service teams that are working closely with customers every day, trying to understand their unique value problems and then building products as well as enhancing our products for that, right? Because at the end of the day, AI is great, but AI can really be supercharged and its power can be amplified when it's not just purely a technology, but a packaged solution that end users and customers can really benefit. How do you simplify it, right? The technology stack is one thing, but also the usable application, the solution is another. How do you get that quickly? And the only way you can get there is not by sitting in your office and planning it by yourself. Like they always say, like, for product managers and product leaders, even though your ideas are great, they are irrelevant because end of the day, what customers think is what matters, right? So we want to like be close to customers as much as possible and do a very customer centric design and as well as an engineering that is customer centric.
Oh yeah, I mean it's a great. I mean this concept has been there, but most of the larger companies hire people, salespeople, they hire SCs and all that. But the problem is the development team doesn't get connected. What I admired working together with your team is every one of those engineers, they can go in front of customers, talk to them, understand, explain to them also. Some of the time customers want something but they don't know, they hear so much noise now, and how do you address that? Yeah, so it is a great thing. So one of the thing you have talked about is there has been shifting economics and infrastructure challenges of gen AI. Like if you look at it, the training is like billions of dollars, OpenAI and all the other people have is spending time, and then other side, which I want you to talk about, the inference and the how enterprises can get value not spending $10 billion into this particular thing. So can you articulate, I mean, go down to what is training versus inference and how are these things changing?
Yeah, great question, Ruben. So what happens is like, let's look. So when you're using what you call a large language model, by now most of our listeners would be pretty familiar with what a large language model is. Essentially, large language model is like ChatGPT, right? But there are two types of models that are provided by, like, they're closed models provided by cloud companies, right? Like ChatGPT, Gemini by Google, and Anthropic, right? Claude by Anthropic, right? Then there are a series of foundation models from Meta, from Alibaba, from many different companies. And then if you go to huggingface.co, you will see a lot of models. It's like a hub for models, right? So the way a model is created is that a model is created by taking a lot of existing large amounts of internet data, right? There is existing archives called Pythia, Pile, and lots of archives like that, right? Plus custom data for some of the companies that are trained for the custom models. But taking them and going through a process called pre-training, which is what we typically call training. That process used to be very, very expensive. Nowadays, depending on the model, I mean, like you said, it's billions of dollars, right? Especially for training a trillion parameter model. Nowadays, with DeepSeek and other type of techniques others have used, you could get a smaller model trained probably under $5 million, right? But pre-training is expensive. Even that is like a big check to swallow for a startup or even for an enterprise for that matter, right? Because an application team, they could have 2, 3, 4 application teams for $5 million a year. So that's quite a bit of money, right? But so that's the pre-training part. Then once the pre-training is done, you can take that model and you can run it on your environment or on a cloud or on a desktop, depending on what the size of the model, right? So every model at a higher level is governed by a couple of things. One is basically called parameters. Parameters are if you think about an AI model, it's layers and layers and layers of these neural networks, right? So what the parameter will basically govern is how each of those neurons are connected and how many connections are there. So typically the parameters are in the billions. The very, very tiny micro models might have 100 million connections, and they are really not very useful. But then as you go a little bit higher to run on the devices, 600 million parameter models are very good. We do work with partners like Qualcomm and others where we run specialized models on devices and POSs and industry devices. So there is a whole business purpose for running those models. And then now if you look at most industry systems, based on all the conversation we've been having, people start with an 8 billion parameter model, right? And then it can go up. And then, of course, I think the sweet spot for most industry application is somewhere in the 15 billion to the 70 billion range, depending on what you really want to do, right? And then, of course, the cloud models are much bigger, which is probably in the 400 million to a trillion range in terms of parameters, right? So, but however, after a model is trained, a model has to be used, and that using process is called inference, right? So if you think about a model at a I'm kind of going very basic just to kind of build a picture,
Yes.
and we can go more deeper in a minute. So when you have a model, I think a model is nothing else but a gigantic file. For example, a 1 billion parameter model probably will be a 2 gigabyte file, right? It's a big file. And the file has layers, weights, and the various capabilities. You need to run that using what do you call an inference engine or a prediction engine, right? So typically people use VLLMs or SGLang. We use all of them, and then we have modified versions of Llama CPP, another engine that can run on devices, right? So you use these engines to do the interpretation of the model. So an input comes in, the engine takes the prompt and loads the model in its memory and passes the data, right? So as you are doing these models, that process is called inference. So inference is when you are actually using the model. So why is this important? That's important because larger companies or enterprises, for that matter, very seldomly, or in fact, there are no occasion where they need to do pre-training. They could take a model that has been trained by one of the foundational models by one of the open sources or by a large company, and they can use that model as an API. If it's a closed model, it'll be an API. If it's an open model, you will have access to the model, and you can use that model using your inference. And that using the model is what's called the inference process, right? So now the inference is cheaper, much cheaper. You can use CPUs depending on the concurrency you need. You can use CPU. You can use lower end GPUs. And you don't need to go into very, very higher end, multiple millions of dollars worth of GPUs, right? Now, from the business side, from the whole economics of the math, this is also an interesting math, apart from usage. Like when you train a model, let's say you're training a billion parameter model, it takes you 90 days of GPU usage across like 500 GPUs, 100 or H200s, 90 days of usage, right? That's your usage. But now, when you take the same model, and every time you inference, you're still using a GPU, but very small amounts of it. You are not using 1,000 GPU or 500 GPU or 100 GPUs. You're using one GPU, part of one GPU, because billion parameters can run probably in an L40. I think you could run 20, 30, maybe 50 simultaneous sessions with it, right? But what happens is when people use these things, inference happens orders of magnitude more than training. Training is a one-time process, or like every 12-month process or every 3-month process. But inference is an everyday process. And if you take these models and put it into a retail website or a high consumer site, there'll be millions of hits, right? Imagine it's in a beauty website on Christmas Day. People go and open their gifts, and everyone's hitting on the search, or everyone's hitting on the chatbot, which is actually a generative AI. So from a usage perspective, inference is much higher usage. That's why companies working in the inference space have a bigger, broader business use.
I mean, I think you're hitting in the right place. I remember listening to NVIDIA Jensen about exactly that area, because the training wave is there, gone, and big guys are using it. But their next big wave, just like the PCs became the enterprises boondoggle about 30 years ago, now it's going to be the inference.
Yeah, absolutely, Ruben. And here is the kicker. Here is where it gets even more exciting, right? So inference is used by an end customer or an enterprise user loading the model, right? But now, as we know, agents are taking over the enterprise, right? So in a typical way, like you're interacting with ChatGPT, you have a legal document and say, find me the red flags. The same case we do in AI Curate all the time, right? You're a legal person, you're asking a question. So the way these LLM works is when you infer, these LLMs create you the sentences, right? So every word or every 1.5 word or whatever, they don't measure by words. Their measurement is not words. It's actually called tokens, right?
Yeah.
Tokens are sort of independent of the words. So like say you are asking a question on a legal agreement as an end user or an enterprise user, you are providing basically, let's say 1,000 words, 1,000 input words and 1,000 output words. But these agents within the enterprises are running automatically. And machine is determining, like the case that we run on database query for AI Curate. You put on an agent and say, go find me the cost saving for blah, blah, blah. And it'll just keep on going iteratively till it finds what the right answer is. Those things can burn 10, 20, 30,000 tokens in a given time for inference. So you're looking at like a 1,000 versus 30,000 at X more usage. So when machines start using applications or agents start using LLMs automatically, now you're going to get like 30x more usage than the 1x usage a single user does. So an agent could basically emulate the use of 30 users at that given point. Imagine every company is doing this, right? Because we
I
are
know
going to get
what
into.
I was going to say, because most of these people who are, sales team or the support team or something, they don't understand the cost behind all of these, what they are doing, because they are like Google search, I'm searching or I'm doing this kind of thing. But when the bill comes in and people realize, wow, by
Yeah.
going to public thing, we spend this much money. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I know that's one of the awakening, right? The IT teams are gonna probably get very soon, right? That's why I think there is a fine balance between using LLMs, APIs in the cloud versus running your own infrastructure with therefore very high intensity workload, right? Because it's really interesting because like everyone says, well, AI, some of the AI projects are only in prototype, not going into production. This is one of the blockers because what happens is they run the cost and send it to the CFOs and the finance teams, and they're like, oh, that's cost prohibitive, right? Even though you can create all these. So that's kind of one. So the way this can be handled is by two methods, right? One method is like the traditional old school method that what the big company, big tech is doing, which is basically we are going to pour in 350 billion and build data centers, and we know like for the next 3 months or 6, 8, 10 months, these queries are not profitable, right? And then they will, eventually the usage will, the pie will increase and increase, and then it'll cross the profitability threshold at some point, right? So that's one methodology. But then for large enterprises, even though their token cost is subsidized and token cost is coming down, right, by these bigger cloud companies because they are investing in infrastructure, they can only come down so much because there is already well established data that's been shown on the internet, and we have it as well. I mean, I'm happy to share with the listeners here, is that as you approach a certain volume, you are, even with cheapest ChatGPT tokens or even like Anthropic or even like AWS Bedrock tokens, you running your own infrastructure with something like an AI Curate is actually about 30x cheaper. 30x, 30x, right? So
That is
that's kind of,
that's a win no go home kind of thing at that point.
yeah, I mean, some companies, yeah, I mean, say you're a bank or you're a, like, let's say you are a big bank, you have a development team trying to build some solution and trying to put this together. It's more cheaper to use an AI Curate versus and even in fact, it's interesting, right? We ran the TCOs between AI Curate and other cloud-based solutions, and I think it came 7.5x benefits in TCO from a pricing perspective, right? So there is, I think, a huge barrier that you can remove if you understand this market correctly and plan accordingly, right? And also, what's making this even more interesting is also, Ruben, the concept of intelligent model routing, right? Because now for the different business tasks, it's 90% of any usage of any big platform, any AI, especially generative AI queries, they are not very, very deep queries, right? Once in a while, some sales guy will put in a 20 tab Excel sheet and start asking a complex question. So during that time, it'll route it to a bigger LLM, which will be more costly. Running
I know
in
that
like,
that's what I enjoyed working while we were building this AI Curate product, I Curate product with you guys, because we evolved and we started at 3 million parameter, this and that, to get confident level for enterprise customers, because enterprise customers you can't just visivash and say,
Yeah,
oh, it could work, it may not work, but they need answers. And most of the
correct.
people who are using it, they have used to do manually by excels and all these things. So if you are going to replace them, you need to give them high confident results. And that what we found out was increasing the to multiple billion parameters, as well as what you said, fine tuning to make it sure they can utilize this one soon. Yeah.
No, I fully agree. And I think that's why I think, like you said, that the what we are going to be helping and what we are already helping today for enterprises is, I think, two things. One is basically get to market fast. We are giving you speed, right, to get to market fast and cost wise, so you can get your projects approved from your CFO and your business teams. Second, can you
Yep.
get the same certainty on AI? But I think things are getting better, and especially by using this type of intelligent routing, using large LLMs for more specific tasks, and doing fine tunes on industry specific data, you can create better predictability, right? And governance, of course, right? The constant analysis and real time feedback and tweaking of these data can create better predictability.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things we have been hearing, and you are also, that's where we started the AI Curate journey with you guys, because a lot of enterprises, as you mentioned, even we are talking about the small to medium businesses like hospital, medical offices, insurance places, or educational institution. They don't want to spend millions of dollars. They don't even want to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, 500,000, 200,000, and they were looking for some solutions. And I think we felt, and you guys felt, as a good place to start is try to go after small to medium enterprises. And I know you had larger customers. And what is your trigger on that? Saying, how do you, popularize or to get to this customer base?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, Ruben. So what happens is, I think, just like any sales methodology and stuff like that, we sort of think about it like a singles, doubles, and triples kind of scenario, right? Because our business is interesting because we originally started with very large customers. We are on the non-Gen AI case, right? So
Yeah.
now we are sort of supporting that and growing that, but also coming down stack into the singles and the doubles. Like you mentioned, I think what happens is there is a real need for small organizations, right? 5% team, 10% teams, right? And in fact, we've had conversations with so many teams that have legal restrictions, like where their documents cannot go. There are small companies, 5-10% teams, right? How do you actually create a solution for them where they don't need to spend capex? So that's one of the reasons we are working with you on the hosting side of the business. And
Yes.
so the hosting side actually removes the capex, but still gives you a private instance to get started with the same guarantee of the privacy, where your LLM's memory is not shared, right? Because I think what happens is that even for just because you're small, it doesn't mean you should put all your stuff in the cloud because of the restrictions and the need. So I think we are seeing that. And in fact, there's a great article that my business partner John wrote and posted on LinkedIn yesterday
I
about
was going
the
to bring that up
70,
actually. Go ahead.
yeah, the 70,000 some leaks that happen on the ChatGPT data. So data, it's very important for enterprises. The danger is that you may end up using a cloud-based solution like a ChatGPT or whatever, or any other agent. And just like BYOD, when iPhone was released and whatever in 2007, in 2010 or 9, every employee started bringing their iPhone to work. They bought their own devices. And they didn't care. They ran the email in there, and then I'm sure so much data got leaked. So that's why the MDMs and all those systems are there now to protect you, to only allow corporate secure data. That same problem is going to happen in this world.
No,
People
no,
are
I
going to
mean,
bring their own agent.
Brian, we were doing a discovery call with the customer, and the customer was talking about it, and he was bragging, "Oh, I get all these things, I throw my contract at ChatGPT and ask questions and everything." And we said, do you know that your information is your competition can access, because now you give the data to ChatGPT, it is training on that data. The competition come and ask the thing. They said, what? Yeah, because they can get your information because you
because
are
even Sam Altman
loading
openly
it.
said, like, you can be subpoenaed on based on your legal query, right? And then the other thing with the ChatGPT is some of these things, I mean, they do have security, but the issue is they have opened up so much. If your user makes a mistake, it'll just all blow up, right? So, like, if you accidentally, I mean, they used to have a bug in the past where if you share your GPT session, Google can index it. Boatload of records actually got exposed through a Google search. So I could go to a deep advanced Google search and say ASA computers or iterate.ai and can see all the shared, right? So those kind of things are dangerous because now you are suddenly exposing a lot of information out. And then especially that's one of the things that, I think I'm trying to emphasize here is that level of security consciousness does not just start at the big $2 billion, organization. It starts at a 5% organization. It starts at the because it doesn't matter because the 5% organization has to be more sensitive to these leaks because the $2 billion organization has a panel boatload of legal lawyers, right? They can pay like a $20 million and I'm sure, somebody will get fired over it, but it's not a big hit on the P&L. If you're
Yeah,
a
I mean,
5%
actually,
organization, this happens to you, your business is shut down. You are closed.
no, America is becoming a larger, bigger organization, $1 billion, $1 trillion companies, and all these running. But small mom and pop shops, and all of those they have to defend a lot of their things. And then
Yeah.
this could be the last blow because, as you said, you put the data out there. Somebody and the bigger corporation, just like they have the big legal thing, they may have big marketing and sales organization. They can go and find out where are you selling, what are you selling, what is the price, what is the margin, all that information you are, innocently putting it out. Use that against you. Just go and
Yeah.
say, okay, I'm going to, use if this ASA is selling to this customer, I know how to go and overcome that and buy because all the
Yeah. And then
information
the
is
thing is, they have so much of established relationships at the blue suit level. They will do it and you won't even know it. That's the interesting part, right? It'll
yeah.
happen over a dinner and you won't know it, right? Next thing you know, the customer turns around and cancels your contract.
Yeah, so we talked about some of the legal law firm. I mean, these are all the legal side of it, but there are additional use cases in the legal side, which I was, because we were at your event, Iterate On, and we met a couple of law firms who are in the forefront of this because they have discoveries, they have so many information and so many documents. So, can you elaborate on how legal law firms can use AI Curate or this kind of product which within private and secure way?
Absolutely, Ruben. So I think for the legal firms, it's interesting because every case, right? There are prior cases or prior precedents that's
Mm-hmm.
out there, which is technically public. You can pull data, but every case that's filed, right, or when adjustments are made to cases, they are not private, right? You don't see that information in the court, right? So every time you do a deposition, every time you pull data from various things, they have to be kept and and kept very secure and analyzed. Often this data is analyzed by human paralegals and human lawyers to look at, but a lot of times it becomes a huge burden on these smaller firms because their time is significantly sucked on looking at all these data. Like let's say you have an embezzlement case or something, but not even a big mega, just a simple embezzlement case, like over 5 years. The amount of data that's there is orders of magnitude big. You're looking at 20, 30 gigabytes, 40 gigabytes of data just for one case for a small
Yeah.
company. And you take this and multiply by years of data in terms of, crazy big litigation scenarios, right? Both from the defense and from the side, right? In these scenarios, is that data just grows, and looking through this data is very difficult, right? And then there's a lot of manual tie-ups and work that needs to be done. The beautiful thing about something like an AI curate is that, or any private LLM scenarios for that matter, is you drop this in, connect it to your organizational data store
Data set,
as well
yeah.
as your file store. It'll pull a lot of the content, and you have the ability to now begin to ask questions. And human is still in the loop. but it's simplifying the discovery process. It is
Yeah, I mean,
simplifying.
I think let's go back to that what last statement you made. A lot of people talk about replacing, human or human workers and all that. What we see, and I'm sure you agree with that also, it is enhances the productivity, enhances the human. Like lately in Silicon Valley, people say I'm working 14 hours, 18 hours, and all those kind of things. A lot of them are mundane tasks, and that can be optimized. But end of the day, the final decision review and approval part of it, this human has to be in there because there are, and I don't want to even get into that topic of hallucination and other area. There, this is data, it's trained on the data available in the ecosystem, and it can go and give some wrong answers once in a while. So majority, I mean, what we have seen is majority of the time we get the good answer, but it still needs some adult supervision to make sure the response get out in a rightful way. So our point of AI Curate for small to medium businesses, this one, there are two parts. One of them is if you don't use this one, the bigger corporations are going to kill you guys first anyway. And the other side of it is if you use this one, don't look at it as a cost saving completely, but more of a productivity improve and value creation for you and your customers. By doing jointly with us with AI, you will be able to expand your company, not trim down.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
if you look,
absolutely. I mean, I fully agree, Ruben. I mean, like, I'll give you a classic financial example, right? Like, for in the legal world, right? As you know, lawyers bill in 15-minute increments, right? So does paralegal and others, right?
yeah,
So now in a 15-minute increment, you're working on one case, right? In this scenario, in a 15-minute increment, a paralegal could look at 5 cases. You open 5 windows in AI Curate. One is running one, you can running five sessions, right? So it sort of supercharges you, right? Even at Iterate, I'll tell you examples, right? So today, I mean, in 2023 December, actually 2024, maybe February or March timeframe, I wanted my marketing team to. This is even before AI Curate, right? Ask my marketing team to say we got to write more articles. I mean, like because look, because you got
yeah.
to. Iterate's all about the work we do and the knowledge and propagate that, and they're like, Brian, we got a staff up. There's 8 people we need, 5 people, whatever. I mean, they're great. So we have a great team, right? So they do a great work. So, but at the end of the day, right, when all these the LLMs came in, now our marketing can produce 20 articles. And our team is only like two, actually one person doing website, one person sort of doing marketing. It's like a 2% team, right? So it's a very small team. And then right now with our agent one, our automated coding thing, we are going to be releasing a website that actually has 50 applications, like all AI agent built that people can just download for free, right? It's all machine built, right? So it's giving a small company like us, I mean, a company that is like a 180 to 100%, depending on the contract overflows, depending on times, probably to punch at a weight of a 2 to 300% company. So this is what I call the punch factor, right? Can you actually increase the punch factor? The power of AI, the Gen AI, it's increasing your punch factor.
No,
And
I
I think
think, yeah,
and
I
the
mean,
other thing that's always said, I think is, I don't know whether who said it. It was in, I think, All In podcast and a bunch of other podcasts. The person who will actually replace your job is not AI, is actually the person who is really good at using AI. Right. So because now suddenly people will become superhuman capacity in terms of what they can do. And a lot of mundane task is done by it and they get better and better and better. And I mean, like now in the legal profession, in your 15-minute billing, unless it's a one-to-one customer consultation, if it's a back-end job, now you can actually do, 4 of them in parallel or 2 of them in parallel, right? That it's changing.
Another example of that is in the real world I am seeing is the new graduates, fresh graduate coming out of college, unless you have some AI experience or AI knowledge or AI capability to bring it to the table, people are not hiring these people anymore. What they are doing is actually, I was interesting. There was few years ago in Silicon Valley, it was people used to say the older age people are not getting job and all those kind of things because they are bringing a lot of young people. Actually, it has changed a little bit because the older generation people, they know how to manipulate, they know the experience, they have the information. Now they can go with AI to back their conclusion or analyze the data, and they don't have to create all of them. Just like you said, 100 agents you can create by asking, just putting a document and saying in this kind of application, comparing this to that, to pull in the internet data and pull everything together. And so the younger people, my advice, I've been mentoring a lot of them, is please build something with AI, build something, because when you do that, you will realize your value goes exponentially up, as well as you will be needed by corporations, people with that knowledge.
No, I agree, Ruben. I mean, we also have a lot of interns now working for us, and we are actually making, because we are training them to become AI, what we call AI native, right? You become an AI native, right? I think there are a number of problems that have sort of sparked this issue, right? One is a lot of, because now kids can apply using automated resume builders. Earlier, they would apply for one job and try to find somebody's uncle and somebody's friend and try to get an interview, right? Now, using these AI builders, they're sending like 3,000 requests in a day. And then on the other side, companies are actually receiving these things and evaluating by AI. So AI is evaluating AI, and that's creating just a big mess, right? And lots of confusion and noise in it. And then, like you said, the mundane task or the skill set that earlier young interns were hired now is being done by AI, which is creating more challenges, which means like these kids have to become super AI native, right? In terms of how they can begin to use some of these applications, which will put them in a different category altogether, right? In terms of creation and creativity and all that stuff. Yeah. And I think universities also have to start teaching that as well as a part of the
Actually, I
curriculum.
mean, they had to, because I think at the early stage, people are saying, don't use ChatGPT, so don't do that. Now they are giving some kind of capability. Yesterday, I got my son starting high school final year, and they sent an email out from the school. They are not being, they want to make sure they don't write all the all their essays using the ChatGPT, but references, just like used to be Google. Now ChatGPT can be used as a reference and ask some questions. So it is basically giving them tools, but still you had to think for your own.
No, I agree, and I think it's also important for especially for kids to teach them all the new ways of interacting with the AI, right? From very basic prompt engineering to more advanced, chain of thought, and how do you, because the LLMs communicate in a certain way, and that's changing every day. And keeping them updated is.
I know I follow you in various social medias. I know your daughter, you are encouraging her to play with some of these prompt
Yeah,
generation.
yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. Actually, in her room, I pasted like 9 different prompt engineering techniques and kind of walking. Because the good thing about some of the LLM and the prompt engineering world is, unless you're going to build an LLM or pre-train yourself, or run make your own inference engine, 95% of the time it's just English, right? Because prompt engineering is nothing else. But that's the beauty in the new world, because your communication language is English with AI, right? So it's just how you communicate the way they think. Can you actually make the LLM do things the way you want, but using the patterns, styles, how LLM uncover these things? So I think learning those prompt techniques and prompt methodologies, I think is important, and it's going to constantly change, right? I mean, you're gonna get into a world eventually. You don't even need to do any of this stuff because the LLM will pick it up, right? Because I had recently a really interesting article where, like today, if you look at the one, I think it was original research was done by Meter, I think, which is basically like so far the AI and Gen AI could do like maybe 1 hour of your mundane work very well. But that capacity is doubling. I think it's doubling every quarter. So we could get into a point in
Yeah. I
2026.
saw your doubling theory part of
Yeah.
it, because it's very interesting. Yes, like a Moore's law, which took
Yeah.
18 months to double because of all the thing. But you are talking about every quarter. Yeah.
Every quarter, right? And I think that's also has a lot of things to do with a couple of things, I think, Ruben. One is actually this concept of context length. So the more, because in order to do like just to answer simple document queries, you don't need context length. Just for our
Mm.
listeners, what is context length? So context length is basically, I'll just give you a human analogy thing, right? Especially all of us, we all married and we speak to our spouses, right? So you go from work and your wife's giving you an update, spouse is giving you an update. You can probably listen for first 15 minutes, you'll capture all the information. That's your context length. LLMs are like that, right? They have a context length. When you give a job to it, hey, do this or an update to it, it can only capture that much. And that's measured in tokens. So one of the things, in order to do capture more and more information, in order to do bigger and bigger and bigger enterprise jobs, LLMs ought to be able to capture very, very, very large context. So you're gonna look at, like, so one of the reasons, like, AWS's, Anthropic's ChatGPT is very good is because it can capture 200,000 tokens at any given single context. And that's why it's being used as a default engine in most coding scenarios and big enterprise agent jobs. But in order to do this context length increase, there's a lot of research that's coming in nowadays, right? So there are LLMs that are actually using different methodologies like SSM and like different attention mechanism. There is a lot of these what do you call RL training, right? RL, like a reinforcement type training at every window of the context. I think TikTok had a really good research and increasing the memory of the LLM. More and more and more, and you are able to do this more effectively. I mean, there are LLMs today that could do a million context window. But the problem is, the trick is that you have a million contexts, it's great, but do you remember everything in the million, right? Can you do a proper
And
needle in the
then
haystack?
accurately remember and then present that, and the results should be meaningful. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't need to be a thing. Yeah, so I mean, we were planning to do a lot more use cases, but I think we talked about, okay, our product can apply into healthcare, because healthcare organization,
Yeah.
from research to that. And then you guys have done a lot of work with finance and banking, because a lot of the information, and then marketing and real estate, all of these needs. I mean, there are two aspects of it. Is one of them is you want the data, whatever your tribal knowledge, you don't want every or all your competition to train from that, so you want to keep it private. And the second one is, how do you increase the increase the productivity of that. So let's talk a little bit. I think we already covered that one, the privacy as a biggest huge concern for all of the enterprises. You don't want to put these, like, remember Samsung put their design document out there in chat gpt, and people
Yeah.
found out many years ago, and all of those things. So how, as AI curate as well as enterprises like Iterate, how are you guys addressing that one? We talked about it, but can you repeat that one?
Yeah. Couple of areas, right? One is in the AI curate as well as on our environment. We actually have fine-tuned large language models that run within either our environment securely, or if you're running it in AI curate, it'll run within the box, right? So your data never leaves. That's the first thing we do. Second thing is, when you give it a history or a information about you, that information by design is ephemeral, right? So it's a little bit like, I think, like the way Snapchat and all those things started, when your social data just keeps on going, and Snapchat said, well, your data is ephemeral, right? Because the reason you want to keep it ephemeral is, like, if you go to the other day, I can show it to you. If you go to ChatGPT's memory, which is enabled by default, unless you start a temporary chat, and most users don't actually know that,
Yeah.
right? ChatGPT actually knows the name of my spouse, knows the name of my daughter, right? Know my company name, know quite a lot about me, right? In fact, my business partner John was showing, it even knows the name and the breed of his dogs, right? So it's like, that's, and it'll actually show you. You can delete that if you want, right? But how many users are deleting it?
Yeah.
Right? Because these are features designed by engineers for engineers, right? Users are not like that way. If one of your legal guys or one of your marketing guys forgets that and doesn't delete it, that information is gone. So it's very important to keep it ephemeral. The other thing is, I think in these bigger models, even though you're hosting it in a GCP or a whatever environment, the model memory is shared across multiple users. So if some leakage happens in one side, it'll leak. They could break through. They could get to your inference engine and pull everything out, right? So there is this sharing. There is so much of risk in this model. That's why in government-centric scenarios or finance scenarios or even healthcare, they would want to run these things on premise or run this in a secure data center or highly secure hosted environments where there is where the LLM query, the data history, everything is either ephemeral or it is encapsulated within that sandbox. It doesn't go out.
I mean, I think when we designed AI Curate together with you, I mean, that was our biggest point of the design point, to make sure each individual, like, we have built in multiple layers of protection. and user clarification. Even within the organization, there is a legal team versus the business team versus the sales team, a finance team. You don't want some of the information to go back and forth. And HR team, basically somebody's private information. So we have built that kind of, what information each one of the users can see, what is shared, what is not shared, and that, a permission control, which we have built. Like when people ask, what is it different from others? And here, first one is it is private, it is secure, it is sitting in our facility or your facility within the enterprise, so it doesn't go to the internet. The second thing is within the organization, you can have create a departmental control, or you can create individual control. Like for example, you have a lot of email coming from customers and all that coming to you, and you don't want that to be shared because everybody compete against each other in the enterprises and information. So you can search within that bound, and by controlling this email box inbox in thing only for me, not even to my team, those kind of control, building that one from ground up, having that kind of permission control.
And the other thing is also, Ruben, what's really interesting is like a lot of times when you're using like especially NDA or legal contracts, right? They do have disclosure to parties. So if an information is given to Iterate, only Iterate can use it. If affiliates is not mentioned, you can't even share it with affiliates, right? So a lot of times by putting these type of contracts into ChatGPT, a lot of people are violating legal terms. You could be in pretty serious trouble if
when you get caught, you had to pay.
You can be in significant trouble because like I remember a while back, right, when the SEO, 20 years ago, right, like when the SEO Linux thing, everyone started putting Linux in data centers and their own systems, and SEO started pretty much going and collecting license fee from everybody, right? And this same thing has happened in CPU war and other places, right?
Yeah.
So like people will start figuring out what's going on, and then people will start collecting. So that's one of the things you want to be super careful in this world about, right? The other thing also, Ruben, I think in addition to the security, one thing that's really interesting that we are enabling is, in fact, I've been the last 2-3 weeks, I've been thinking about this. One of them is this: the new oil is not data. The new oil is use cases. Use cases within your enterprise. I didn't think
that way, actually. I was thinking data.
Right? The reason is, of course, data is a part of it, but it's just not only data, right? Early, because it's actually these use cases. Because what happens is with AI is the AI is as powerful as the amount of business cases it solves. So what's really interesting is as you bring in new and newer use cases under the umbrella of the AI, now you are able to solve more and you are able to create more value. You are able to do better KPIs and better justifications.
I think it's very interesting point. I think that is one of the additional feature we have on the AI Curate, where people can build these cards with
Absolutely
use cases, and that way not everybody had to be, like for example, a paralegal or somebody who's working on accounting or the RMA team. They don't have to know everything. One of the senior person or the experienced person can pull few things or work with our team members to build these cards, and just put the card and just say, it will pop up and say, get show me where are the files and all that. Then it will give you the whole flow of comparing the data within, or it can even go to internet and pull the data without putting your data out, and collate all of these information and present in a cohesive way. Correct?
No, I 100% agree. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. That's why I think by building these use cases and having the right security, but also enabling your organization to begin to build more and more and more cases by doing the cards, right? And empowering the user, right? How do you empower your enterprise user?
Fully packaged. People, like yesterday we were with one enterprise customer, enterprise partner. Brian pulled his chart, and we were showing how easier to use this one as a, if you know how to do search in a Google thing, or if you know how to just play with Chat GPT interface or something, it is as simple as that to get so much business intelligence out of all of your data and all of your workflow. So it doesn't need like a huge IT department. You don't need to hire AI engineers. You don't need a data scientist internally. All of them are packaged in this solution. So what you get is an end-to-end workflow solution which you can run it on-prem or at a subscription model in a private cloud hosted by ASA computers. So we can do a lot of these things. We can continue to talk about it, but I think I just want to respect the time and get to there. So, Brian, give me as final words. What do you think where we are going and AI businesses? You are being a thought leader, being on this.
See, I think the AI usage and the size of the AI pie is going to increase. I mean, just look at NVIDIA. I mean, at one point, few years back, I was talking to some analyst and they said, well, people are overestimating AI. It's like $1.5 trillion or $2 trillion market. Now go look at NVIDIA's market cap. That itself is a $4 trillion market, right? So I was talking to some investors and some other leaders in this space, and it seems like this could become a 20 to 25 trillion market. That's how big it is. Because once agents get into enterprises and enterprise applications become agentic, and then when you begin to get a lot of small businesses, mid markets, you're gonna be getting. This is gonna propagate really fast.
I mean, it makes sense also because this is not an industry centric thing. Yeah, now like from agriculture, from industrial, from oil and gas, from financial, insurance, or like pharmaceutical, every field is getting upended by this technology. Correct?
Yep, 100%, right? And it's truly like electricity, right? It's everywhere across every industry vertical, right? It's ubiquitous, right? I mean, this is one of the things finally, a long time ago, like every time I read some report, like 10 years, 15 years ago, like every report would start with every marketing, like, this is going to be ubiquitous, but then nothing became ubiquitous, right? But I think AI is one of those things that is going to become ubiquitous everywhere. You do see that it has a true usage everywhere. So that's one, I think, big trend that we're going to see. And I think like we are focused, security and privacy are going to be big in the companies, right?
Big.
Just even look at the early days of internet. I mean, the 2000 people would bring websites and hackers would break them, and then the internet would be shut down. Half of West Coast is shut down. Like at one point, this whole virus spread was a big deal, right? Which is the virus that has the biggest spread map, right? And that all those things used to be a story, right? And now you seldomly hear it because security has gone in and there is process. That's going to happen in AI. You're going to have better governance, better security, and I think that's a place where we are in. I think creating that certainty for the enterprise leader. Just because you did this works for you, and you're not on the line. I think that's another big.
I think to end this one, I can tell you there are so much change, so much new technology, so much innovation, so much things happening. But what doesn't change is everyone wants to protect their company IP, company know-how, those kind of thing. So that is still going to be the case, because if we don't do that, somebody down the road or somebody down the another state or another country, because the world is actually becoming flat in this way. Everybody can access to all of these, but how do you protect? How do you secure? How do you private? And so that's where I'm so happy that we jointly build this product. As mentioned, it is ready to go. We have both appliance as well as subscription model part of it ready. So for the audience who are listening, if you guys are looking for a solution for your enterprises, which is private, secure, and it can be you don't have to do much of it to get it going, please reach out to us and we will be able to give you a demo, a POC, and jump in with us. And if you have a deeper problem, we will bring in Brian and his team, because they have worked with many enterprises to offer additional solution. I mean, we didn't even talk about interplay, the no-code platforms, and a lot of these things which these guys have done. And so there are so many additional things we can provide and partner with. Brian, thank you very much for participating. We were thinking about 30, 40 minutes. We went to an hour now, but it is a great conversation point and appreciate it. And for our audience, thank you for listening to us in our Rackside Chat, and see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruban.